everyone. Thank you for coming. And we're going to talk about mobile apps. But since this conference is about modularity, we're in the ModConf, I want to talk to you about the component model, which is one kind of old stuff that is important nowadays. So we are not only talking about mobile, but also about modularity and the component model. So probably all of you know that we, in the mobile side, in the mobile world, we are full of apps. And some of you think that you don't need an app for everything. And I partially agree. And there's a saying that there's an app for that. And probably you don't need an app for that. But maybe yes, I don't know. So it's important to know how our users are consuming the mobile content, right? In this data, you can see the amount of users you can reach with a mobile app and a mobile website, okay? As you can see, it's much easier to build a large audience, to attract a lot of people using a mobile website, just because you don't have to install anything, you don't have to force users to update the mobile app. Maybe the search engines work much better with mobile websites. So it's much easier to attract, to reach a lot of people with mobile websites. To show the same data in a different way, you can reach 3 times more people using a mobile website. That's important. And to use an analogy, think about your mobile website like your birthday party. You invite a lot of people, you get your old and new friends in your home, wherever. You have fun with them, you spend time, and it's fun. And you can gather a lot of people in your birthday party. And you can reach a large audience, and maybe you should take advantage of that. But, always there's a but, we have another metric, which is the time spent using a mobile device. We are not focusing in how much people you can reach. We are focusing now in how much time you spend in a mobile device. And this picture is shocking. As you can see, 18 times, people spend 18 times more time in using mobile apps than mobile websites. So probably a regular user, an average user, spend 95% of the time using apps instead of using the website, browsing the mobile internet, the mobile website. This is shocking. And at this point, probably your party is over and everything left. So you get to attract a lot of people to your party, and suddenly everything left. Maybe minutes, maybe seconds, but the party's over. And that's too bad. Why we spent a lot of time, a lot of investment in doing our website, and finally, the people is not staying with us. And I'm sorry, but probably a regular website, mobile website, is like this. And on the other hand, we have the mobile apps. The mobile apps, the metrics said that it's quite different. You can reach much less audience. You can reach few people with them, with the apps, but they are more loyal to you. They spend more time with you. It's a long-term relationship with them, and you have to give them something special every day. You have to not attract, but maybe date them and offer them a personal experience. And it's important because every user expects different things in each scenario. At this point, you maybe are wondering about how to do. Should I invest in my mobile website? Should I invest in a mobile app? And that's a very important question. In most projects, you have to deal with this question. And what's the answer? You don't have to choose one of those. You have to first arrange your party, invite as much users, as much friends as possible. Be a good host, because they expect you to treat them well. But finally, enjoy the long term with those of them who want to stay longer. Probably some users want to stay with you, with your service, with your product, want to stay longer, and you want to offer them a long-term relationship, a more personal relationship, a unique and personalized experience. In the first hand, we already know that we have Liferay for the mobile website, so I'm not going to talk about this. Starting from version 6.0, 6.2, we have responsive websites by default. But on the other hand, we have to deal with different technology and probably different tools. And the tool we are offering from Liferay is Liferay Screens. We say that it's the rapid native app development tool. And I'd say that it's not only rapid, but it's also smart. And why smart? Because it's based on the component model. And that's the idea I want to introduce you. Probably some of you know about the component model. I want you to invite to my car, jump into this car, have parked it out there, and I want you to go 15 years ago. In Germany, in 1968, there was a conference like this one, a software engineering conference, and there was full of people like you, or maybe like those, people, engineers, and they didn't have a mobile app to check their talks, they didn't have a website, they have just plain papers to read the abstracts and talks. And one of those talks was about, the title was Mass-Produced Software Components. And it was the first time that this term appeared. Software component was a new term in those years. Nobody talked about software components. What's that? Even the author needed to clarify what's it. Software component, and he said it's a routine. Routine was a term widely used in those years. And he also said some controversial statements, like this one. And he said that the software industry is not industrialized. At those years, it was pretty difficult to build software projects, software products, because the industry wasn't prepared. The software world wasn't prepared for scale. And they couldn't create an economy around software. So maybe if we are software developers for a living, maybe it's thank you, that guy, that bring up this problem to the industry. Thank you to these guys. We have an industry, an economy around software. And this guy was Douglas McIlroy. Do any of you know this guy? Have you ever seen this picture of this guy? No? This is a very important guy. He's not famous, but he's a very important guy. Just a clue. Do any of you know what is it? Come on, don't be shy. What is it? It's a stick? No? It's a Minecraft tool? No? It's this, the pipe symbol. This is very important because this idea of the pipe symbol changed the way of building software. And the pipe symbol is one of the applications of this idea of software components, because it's the same guy who think about that, who thought. And this guy, it's called one of the Unix heroes, because one of the tools you are using every day was written by this guy. He said something like this. This is a unique philosophy. Write programs to do one single thing and do it well. Okay? Write programs to work together. And write programs to handle text streams, because this is a universal interface. In those years, that was the universal interface. Nowadays, we have other interfaces. I don't know you, but when I read this, I think in something like this. The damn Lego picture. I'm sure that you are expecting a lot of Lego pictures in a modularity conf, right? But it seems that there's a new trend. Nowadays, instead of the Lego, we use the atom. It's pretty the same, but it's the new trend these days. And the idea behind is just this. The Lego piece or the molecule does only one thing, just only one. It does it well. Okay, you can rely on that piece. It will not fail. It collaborates with others because it's meant to be used together with other pieces, not isolated. And it uses a universal interface. In the case of the Lego piece, it's just the peaks and the holes you use to connect two pieces. In the case of the atom, it's, I don't know, electrons spinning, I don't know. So no more atoms. Let's talk about something specific for us. What examples of components you have in your daily jobs? Yes, Java class, maybe a component, but only if it does one thing. Probably you are thinking about that single responsibility principle. This is the idea behind. It does it well. Whatever it does, this Java class, it does it well. So it should be tested, or maybe unit tested. Unit is important here because we are talking about components which are units which do only one thing. It collaborates with others because classes probably need other classes to achieve their goals. And you maybe are thinking about this idea of high cohesion, low coupling, which means that your class should work with fewer other classes as possible, but maybe you need some classes to work together, and they will stay together. And finally, the Java class uses a universal interface. In this case, it's in the JVM. So the JVM is the universe. The Java class uses the same interface, the same data types, the same structure as other classes to collaborate with. And also, we have this idea, the OSGI components. Maybe, or for sure, an OSGI component can be a component, obvious. In my point of view, only if it follows the same rules. Not every OSGI component is a component. If you have a monolith inside an OSGI component, please don't call it an OSGI component. Just call it an OSGI monolith. That's all. It's fine, but it's not a component. And maybe some of you are DevOps guys who are interested in this idea of the DevOps. And in this case, we have Docker. And what's about Docker here, about components? The idea is the same because this microservices architecture are made of small pieces called microservices. And each microservice does one single thing, or that's in the theory because finally they group some microservices in one. But that's the idea behind. The microservice does it well. It should be well tested, in this case with integration testing. The microservice collaborates with other microservices. It's composable. You can use other microservices to achieve your goals. And it uses a universal interface. The interface of communication between microservices, in this case, is the networking layer. And probably some of you are front-end guys. And in this case, you for sure are using AngularJS. And you have components in AngularJS. If you are doing mobile hybrid apps, you probably are using Ionic, which uses widgets that are components, or maybe React or React Native, which is built on top of the idea of the component model, too. And the new standard in these years, the web component, which is relying on the same idea. And also in Liferay, we have Liferay Screens, which follow the same principles. Because in Liferay, it's a library, and we provide a suite of components. In this case, we call them Screenlets, but they are components. That we changed the name because it's fancier. And our Screenlets do only one thing. Each Screenlet does one only thing. For instance, let's see this one. This is a new Screenlet we've just released. to present a blog entry. If you are building a mobile app and you need to present an article, a blog entry, you don't need to do it from scratch. All the work, the request, get the response, handle of the exceptions. You just use a component that is able to render a web entry, a blog entry, sorry. And it does everything for you. You can customize, you can change things, but it's all. And our Screenlets do it well because they are well tested, and they collaborate with others too. Because the idea behind is Screenlets are composable. And what does it mean? That you can use one Screenlet to create the next one. For instance, you can see here the user portrait Screenlet. With that Screenlet, you can present the picture of one user. That's all. Plain simple. And we needed to create a Screenlet to present a comment. So to present the comment, we need to present the content, the time, and the picture of the author. What did we do? Just use the user portrait Screenlet to create the next Screenlet, composing Screenlets. And next, we needed to create the list of components, the list of comments. What did we do? Use the previous Screenlet to create the new one. We are building first the basic building blocks and then rely on them to create the next one. And in Screens, we use a universal interface. In our case, it's just the patterns and the tools for a typical iOS and Android developer. I don't know you, but at this point, I see components everywhere. In every single library out there, I see the component model. And I would say that it's not a trend, it's not a fancy thing, it's just something very old, and it's here to stay, the component model architecture. In Liferay Screens 2, we are releasing in these days, we have several good improvements. In 1.4, we had 9 Screenlets to solve 9 specific needs. Common needs like present a login form, present web content, present a form, and allow users to fill the form, 9 specific common use cases. But in 2.0, we have more than 20 Screenlets. So you can cover most of the functionality of your mobile apps using Screenlets. 21 specific use cases solved. You just take the component and use it by your own. Some examples, the asset display, which is able to render any kind of asset coming from your server, from your Liferay instance. It can be a video in the document library, it can be a blog entry, whatever. And it doesn't involve HTML rendering. It's 100% native, everything. Just 4 lines of code. This is a sample for Android development, but you can do something similar in iOS development. 4 lines of code, and you get your asset rendered. We also have the image gallery Screenlet. With one single component, you have all of those functionality. You can get the thumbnails and the pictures from your document library and present that in your mobile app. You can use a grid layout, a slideshow layout like that one, or if you want, a simple plain list of images. And it also supports upload. You can take a picture, and it will be uploaded to the server. And if you want some fancy rendering, you can do it by your own. Something is extensible. Again, 4 lines of code. That's all. You just put that lines, the folder ID, the repository ID, and the component grabs all the information and works for you. We also have the comments Screenlet. In this case, we have 4 or 5 Screenlets to add, to list, to show, to remove comments. So with this functionality, you are able to build half a Facebook app. A Facebook app functionality, let's say just 1/2 of those functionality. And we also have the rating Screenlet, which allows you to rate any asset in your server. So you can choose if you want thumbs up or stars ratings, or maybe something more fancy like emojis, like those ones. So you can rate any asset. And with this functionality, you probably have the other half of the Facebook app. And for every release we do, we release a sample application. This is important because it allows you to learn how to use Screenlets and maybe use it as a reference or as a starting point for your own projects. It's totally free and open source. And in this case, it's an enterprise intranet app, one very typical scenario for our customers. A typical intranet app is already built using Screenlets. It took us, just to build the mobile app with these fancy animations, it took us 2 days. That's all. 2 days of work, you have an intranet app. We are experienced mobile developers, but assuming you have a mobile team, you can do that in 2 days. And the most important thing to remember from this talk is it's not about using fancy frameworks, libraries, everything very trendy for your backend, frontend, wherever development. It's just to go to the basics. Just rely on the basics idea to build on top of that for your architecture. If you do that, your software will be simpler to use, it will be easier to understand, and it will be faster to evolve. That's probably the most important goals that every software developer should pursue. And for us, the component model is a very good foundation. It's a very old idea, but very valid nowadays. And that's all. Thank you for coming. And one more thing. Please rate the talk in the mobile app. I talked to you about the rating Screenlet. This is the rating Screenlet, thumbs up. And there is a bug in the rating Screenlet. That button doesn't work. It only works the thumbs up button. Okay? So use that one. That's all. Any question?
I missed the first half of the presentation, so sorry if you already addressed that, but do you plan to provide support for React Native, for example, with Liferay Screenlets in the future versions?
Very good question. Right now, Screens is a native toolkit, both for iOS and Android. But in our short-term roadmap is to start with one of the hybrid hybrid solutions out there. We didn't decide yet which one, because in the hybrid world, it's pretty fragmented. You have React Native, you have Ionic, you have Xamarin, you have a lot of options. But we are going to choose one of those and give this idea of modularity, component model, and Screenlets to a hybrid library. But React Native is one of the candidates.